In this video, I want to have a look at using your calculator to evaluate squares and square roots. So I'm going to be using the Casio calculator. If you've got a Sharp or anything else, your buttons might be slightly different. So we'll have a look at this one and I'll explain a few differences with the Sharp as we go through. So we're going to evaluate these, and if we get a decimal, we're going to round it off to 2 decimal places. So our first one is the number 5 squared. So we're just going to press our 5 button down the bottom. And then this button here will give us our squared on there, and we'll hit equals, and it just gives us 25. Now that makes sense because we know that when we square something, it means that we're timesing it by itself, and 5 times 5 is 25. So we can do the same thing if we have a decimal. So this one we've got 1.2, so we'll write in our decimal point as well. So we've got 1.2 and then our squared button, and that's going to give us 1.44. Now if we've got 2 square numbers added together, so we're going to have 5 squared plus 3.2 squared, so it's going to look like this on your display, and then we can hit equals, so we're going to end up with 35.24. Now the next one is very similar, except we've got a subtraction instead of an addition, so just popping it in the same way, we're going to have 8.3, and then we're going to square that, and minus our 6.1 squared as well. So that's going to give us 31.68. So that's when we're squaring things. The other one is taking the square root. So that's going to be this button here. So for this one, we're going to type in the square root of 49, and it's going to give us 7. So that's a nice whole number, but it won't always give us a nice whole number. So if we have a look at our next one, we've got the square root of 80. And when we hit equals on that, it's going to give us this really long decimal that actually keeps going on as well. So like it asked us to in the question, we're just going to round that off to 2 decimal places. So we're going to write 8.94. Okay, this last one is the one you have to be most careful with. If you've got a Casio, it's going to be fairly easy to do. We're going to put our square root, and then we're going to make sure that all of this goes under the square root sign. So we're going to write 15 squared plus 19 squared. And this, in the Casio, it automatically draws that square root sign over the whole thing. So it's very, very different to if I had 15 squared. If I move my cursor across one, and then I added, oh no, hang on, sorry. I move it across one more. If I added 19 squared, and it's not under the square root sign, so you need to make sure that you don't accidentally do that, that it does stay underneath the square root. Yep, 19, not 16. Now, if you've got a Sharp, it doesn't draw it like this, it doesn't display it the same way. So what you need to do is you need to put your square root sign, and then you need to have brackets around that whole 15 squared plus 19 squared. But your answer should come out to give you this, and if we round it to 2 decimal places, we're going to have 24.21. So that's having a look at evaluating squares and square roots in your calculator.